Hello, everyone, and welcome to an extra episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast, where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, I'm going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where I talk about anything, everything, and anything about movies. I'm your host, Chase Lee, and hey, guys, listen, usually the shows are on Sunday, and I try to give you guys a little extra flavor throughout the week if I have some extra episodes, and we're on the road to the Oscars, as they all say. No one says it, I just said that. I'm talking to myself. Anyways, the Oscars are coming up this Sunday, and you guys are going to get three different episodes from me this week. The episode tonight, the regular Sunday show on Sunday, and then, of course, I will be covering the Oscars live on Sunday, so you guys will get 3 episodes. Holy shit, buckle up, Buttercup. It's about to get fucking wrecked. All right, so anyways, this tonight's episode, I am not going to be hosting. I'm going to let Joel host it just like we did last time for the memo to the Academy. It's kind of our little Oscar mini episodes we got going on. So, Joel, first of all, how are you doing tonight? And are you excited for the Oscars?
I am very excited for the Oscars. I'm doing well tonight. I'm good. I'm good. But yeah, I'm super excited for the Oscars. I think that this is one of the more contentious years in terms of just category by category. There's a lot of them that I really don't have a handle. I mean, there's some that are very clear, but that I don't have a handle on. There are a lot of those too. So I'm really excited. I feel like we're in for some surprises. Either that or La La Land's going to just dominate everything.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, you know, sometimes it doesn't happen that way. And with something that has double-digit nominations, you know, doesn't quite dominate. But nevertheless, I think we have some surprises in store. And I always, you know, it's interesting because I feel like the month before or part of the month before, you kind of get this sense of between the nominations announcement and the show, maybe for a couple of weeks there's this sense of kind of stagnation specifically in this scene, and then the week before hits, and then you're like, oh, I'm actually really excited for this. And that's kind of how it is every year. It's been that way this year. I'm looking through all the categories. I'm like, man, there's really good stuff nominated. I feel like we're coming up to a lot of really interesting surprises, you know, in the vein of Ex Machina winning visual effects or something. So
yeah,
I am very excited for it.
Yeah, and oh shit, this just in, Chase Lee's soul has just died. Now Joel will take over. So Joel will be the host for the rest of the evening. Joel, would you like to describe to the wonderful listeners out there what we are doing tonight?
Yeah. So. A month ago, we had our memo to the Academy, which occurred or was posted at least on the last day of voting for nominees. And so what we did was we were like, you know, Academy, don't forget these movies or performances or whatever. And it turns out that they did a lot in terms of our choices. But now what we're going to do with less than a week to go is today was the last day of voting for winners from the Academy members. The envelopes have been turned in, I think, as of 5 p.m. Might have been earlier, I can't remember. But I think it's as of 5 p.m. their time, so it may not be over yet. In which case, it's kind of, I think it's probably about an hour away. But nevertheless, envelopes are being handed in if they aren't already. And so we're going to go through and talk about some of the categories and kind of give what we think will win, last-minute thoughts about what we think will win, and then what we want to win in each of these categories. I think that we've added a couple. Last time I don't think that we did the screenplay categories, but we're going to do those this time. We're going to talk about the main 5, picture and the acting categories, and then we've got a couple of technical categories, different technical categories than before. And so I think that's where we're going to start, actually. I think I'll go ahead and start with the visual effects nominees, and those are Deepwater Horizon, Doctor Strange, Kubo and the Two Strings, The Jungle Book, and Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, or just Rogue One according to the movie title. But interesting nomination here for me was Kubo and the Two Strings, which is, of course, a stop-motion animation film from Laika. A lot of the background work, I think, is what got this in to the category. I don't think that a stop-motion animation film has been nominated before. Maybe Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't remember, but I feel like that and Doctor Strange are on the outside. But what could win is Rogue One, and I think that they're going to go with that. I'm tempted to say that The Jungle Book will win, but I don't know. There's been a lot of these decisions where you had Hugo win instead of Rise of the Planet of the Apes. In terms of motion capture being used in a live action setting. But I think that they're going to go with Rogue One. I think that this is the year that Star Wars wins visual effects Academy Award, simply because it just doesn't feel like this year is as contentious as other years. I don't think that we're headed to some random surprise like Ex Machina last year. I don't think this is the category this year in which that will happen. But I think that they're going to go with Rogue One. It just seems like so many talking points are surrounding that movie right now that they're going to see the work that was done on it. And it's impressive work. Now, the only thing that could be going against it is the resurrection of Peter Cushing, which was super weird, but effective. And I think that they'll think that it's effective because it was resurrecting an actual character that seemed to really interact with the other characters. So I think that that's what they're going to go with. But for me, what I want to win, absolutely and without a doubt, is the Jungle Book. I think that this is another benchmark of the medium in the vein of stuff like the Planet of the Apes movies that have come out in the last couple of years. It's just utterly photorealistic, and it's used to tell the story. The character, all the characters except for one of them are visual effects. So we have to be invested in those characters, and they have to be well animated. They have to be precisely animated in order to for us to have a connection to them. There have to be convincing performances. Part of the performances, though, lies in their ability to sell them as characters, and I think that that's crucial. So that is my choice, my preference to win in visual effects. But I think that they're going to go with Rogue One.
You know what? It doesn't matter what we pick because Disney's got a 60% chance of winning regardless. So I agree with you. I think Rogue One will probably sweep it. It had some amazing visuals. Kubo and the Two Strings, you have your stop motion and your CGI, your practical. It's amazing how they blended the two. The Jungle Book was a humongous achievement in terms of having this little kid act with basically nothing but a green screen. And Doctor Strange was really well done too. But my preference is the Dark Horse. I think for what Deepwater Horizon did in terms of its budget and being like this middle budgeted movie and having effects that good mixed in with the wonderful kind of sound mixing and editing of that whole disaster sequence towards the end, I'm going with Deepwater Horizon because it was one of those few experiences last year where I sat in the theater and I was kind of like in awe at what was happening on screen. I felt the same way when I watched Hacksaw Ridge, same way when I watched Rogue One and Jungle Book, but I actually will give it to the underdog, Deepwater Horizon. So that would be my personal pick, but I think you're right. Rogue One will definitely win it, but let's just call it what it is. Disney will win regardless because they have 3 out of the 5, which means they have a better chance over anyone else. So,
yeah, absolutely. Deepwater has really, really impressive work.
It's immersive. Like you never would have thought like a movie like that doesn't. It had a big budget, but like when you think about Doctor Strange or Jungle Book, that's like reaching almost $200 million. Deepwater Horizon was about half that. And those effects looked amazing, and it didn't even look like they were in front of actually looked like they were on an oil rig running from this explosion. So that I really appreciate that.
Well, actually, I mean it's sort of in conjunction with the production design, because they really did build that oil rig. That was, I mean, not a working oil rig, of course, but it looked like one.
Correct.
And it had all the parts of it, and so together with that visual effects work, I mean, it really is immersive, like you say. It's probably my number 2 in terms of preference, but it's sort of close though. I mean, it's just the watermark kind of that the Jungle Book reaches.
Yeah.
In the medium, for me, it's just what I got to go with. And it was the same with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, these things and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Those were my choices that in their years as well, just because of the landmark kind of work. But absolutely, yeah. I mean, those two are at the top for me. So next, I think that I'll go ahead and give the nominees, but this is Chase's category, and that is Best Original Score. The nominees in this category are Jackie, featuring work from Mika Levy, La La Land, featuring work from Justin Hurwitz, Lion, featuring work from Dustin O'Halloran and Hauschka, Moonlight, featuring work from Nicholas Bertel, and Passengers, featuring work from Academy favorite Thomas Newman. Go ahead, Chase. Give your spiel.
So for this one, obviously, Joel and I are not stupid. We probably know that La La Land will probably win this one. However, I want to give a little notoriety to the rest of them, even Passengers, to having themes or having music that actually affected the experience. And let me explain what I'm talking about. La La Land, to me, has some great, catchy as fuck songs. And they even have a really great theme that plays throughout La La Land. But as an overall score, it doesn't have the emotional impact I thought it would. Now, don't get me wrong. When I think of City of Stars or Audition, both of those songs in general can play towards more of a dramatic side and a kind of a lighthearted side. That's what's kind of or uplifting or whatever. So that's what's kind of interesting about the music of La La Land, is that it can actually be played towards both emotions. And like I said, they're catchy. It's probably going to win, and that would be my second pick. However, it was a tie for me, for my personal my preference between Jackie and Moonlight, and I think I'm going to go with Moonlight. The fact that Moonlight is already perfect as it is, the score kind of adds almost like this haunting romance throughout, and it kind of plays on the horrific nature of the film in terms of like bullying and racial divide and whatnot, and then it focuses on like this wonderful, beautiful kind of romantic side, with the relationship that happens in between, and just that whole diner scene. It's a well-constructed score to where it takes you from some of the most effective scenes, horrifically or emotionally, to some of the most to the more like happy scenes or whatnot. But it kind of it's like this symphony that just kind of plays from beginning to end, and I don't know. I fucking love it. Sue me. So my preference is Moonlight. I think it's just like that icing on the cake for that perfect of a film. And then La La Land would be probably my close second. And then Jackie. But listen, I understand that La La Land will probably do it. And like I said, their songs are catchy, and I think their melodies are very catchy. Every time when I hear this song that's played at the end of La La Land on the piano, it's like that immediately takes me back. It's the same way with Moonlight. If you play some of those pieces or whatever, it immediately takes me back. So is Jackie. But yeah, personal preference, Moonlight, because I want to give it some recognition in this category, because I think it's very underlooked, because La La Land is a musical. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, obviously La La Land's going to win this. It's so clear. Like this is one of the categories I was talking about when I said I know it's going to win.
Yeah.
Like it's so clear. It's weird. I don't want to sound like a curmudgeon because I like the score for this movie, but for some reason I always feel like on the Academy's part it's a bit of a cheat when a musical wins Best
Mm-hmm.
Score
Yeah.
because it often feels like it also often goes along with an original song nomination or two in this case. It often feels like the songs swallow the score
Yeah.
so that what sticks in your head afterward are the songs and the tunes to those songs. Now, of course, the tunes to those songs are clearly part of this nomination for original score because they were composed by, or in large part composed by Justin Hurwitz as well. So they kind of contribute to the nomination that he got. But I feel like in other parts of the film, it just kind of disappears, and which is fine. I mean, it's a good score nevertheless. It just kind of disappears. So I think that that's gonna win. But my choice is a very clear one. I did not have a tie at the top. It's Jackie.
Wow.
Yeah, this is so far and away my favorite score of the four that I've heard. I should say I haven't heard Thomas Newman's score because I haven't seen Passengers, but nevertheless, Mika Levy made my favorite score of 2014 with Under the Skin, and she makes my favorite here. And it's and this is not just my favorite score of the nominees; it's my favorite score of the whole year of all of the potential nominees as well. It's a stunning piece of work. It's orchestral. It feels like it's a very theatrical piece of work as a movie. There's a lot of theatrical stuff going on there, a lot of staging, and it feels like, not to his discredit, of course, that's part of his genius, I think, but nevertheless, it's a lot of staginess in a good way, and I think that Mika Levy's score goes with that. There's a lot of rises and crests, and it's very interesting work. I love the Moonlight score as well. Don't get me wrong, but I think that the Jackie score is far and away my favorite of the year. I love that score. I could listen to that score again right now, if I wanted to. So I just love it, and so yeah, that's my preference. But obviously, La La Land's going to take it. Every other nominee here is happy to be nominated. I will say though, like if anything could take it away from La La Land, it won't. But if it could, watch out for Lion, because I feel like it could kind of rally some of the voters, but it's probably not. I mean, it's probably going to be La La Land. So,
hey,
anyway.
dude, I'm right there with you. Lion was really good because, when Joel and I saw it together, like we had no idea what to expect, and I remember the movie did open up with like some of the most gorgeous cinematography and the most sweeping music of the entire year, and that was just the opening credits. So I was like, "Oh damn, is this? We're about to get into a good movie here? What's going on?"
As soon as it opened, that opening scene with the music, I was like, "Man, I wonder if this is going to be a score nominee." And I was right.
And you're right.
I mean, I figured it would be. So, all right. So our next category is Best Adapted Screenplay. Let's get into it. The nominees here are, and I'm going to actually give what they were adapted from as well. Arrival, which was written by Eric Heiserer and adapted from Story of Your Life by Ted Chiang, which is a short story. Fences, written by the late August Wilson from his play. This is a posthumous nomination for him. They just basically took the screenplay or the stage play and adapted it into a screenplay, but they just kept his name on it. He actually passed away back in 2005. So it's very interesting how that happened. But Hidden Figures, written by Alison Schroeder and Theodore Melfi from the book by Margot Lee Shetterly. Lion, written by Luke Davies from the book A Long Way Home by Saru Brierley and Larry Buttrose. And Moonlight, written by Barry Jenkins from the unpublished play In Moonlight, Black Boys Look Blue by Terrell Alvin McCraney, who got a story credit here. And I'm just going to say it. I think that Moonlight is going to win, and I think it should win. It's my pick for both.
Well, just to keep this short and sweet, it is mine on both as well. So I want to ask you, what would be your second?
Oh goodness, I think that Hidden Figures is an incredibly well written movie. It's actually my on this list is my second favorite of those as a movie, and the reason is a lot of people seem to feel that it's like this safe, kind of not bland, I guess, but just this kind of a safe pick, and it's probably the least likely on this list to win, but that's my second favorite. Now, the dark horse to win, I think, is Arrival.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I think it very well. If Moonlight for some reason loses, I could see it losing to this.
I'm actually going to be on the opposite of you. I think if there's going to be a dark horse, it's going to be Fences.
Okay. Which, I think that's the middle. That's sort of like on likelihood. I think that's number 3. But I could see Arrival kind of coming in there and maybe taking it away on the basis of the fact that it did get a Best Picture nomination. It did get a Best Director nomination. It seems to have a lot of support in the Academy. A lot of people like it. I mean, Moonlight seems to kind of be the one to lose this, and it should be because it's an incredibly well written movie. It does an interesting thing too. The unpublished play that it was based on was actually in a different order than the movie came in, and that's something that Chase and I learned when we saw this. Is in the play, it kind of goes in and out of the different time periods. In the movie, it just plays, one section of the life, and then the next section, and then the last section. Kind of 3 short films, sort of unintentionally named after his names that he is given or reclaims or whatever throughout. And it's interesting because it becomes a triptych in that way. Sort of a triple feature in one, and it's just in the character work. That's a lot of that's in the writing and acting, but in the writing especially, you have a lot of interesting, a lot of archetypes that are transcended through this writing. You have the father figure who's also a drug dealer, the mother who is not your just everyday, absentee mom, and then of course the character work on Chiron, or Chiron, I should say. I keep saying that incorrectly. Anyway, it's the strongest screenplay of this grouping, and I think that it will win. I think that they're going to. It's sort of. I'll get to this later, but I think it's the possible runner-up in Best Picture. I'll get into that more in depth later, and because of that, because it's in this category and La La Land is not, I feel like it's going to split between original screenplay and this one.
Yeah.
And you're going to have the obvious front runner winning one, and then that second runner-up person movie winning the other one that it's nominated for, and it should absolutely win. It's the best film of the year. It's got one of the best screenplays of the year, in particular because of the amount of empathy that it has for its characters, the way it tells its story. I mean, it's great work.
It's written in a very authentic, kind of grounded realism. I think that's what kind of sets it apart. Because you're right. As much as I like Hidden Figures, it is very like movie-esque. Lion is very movie-esque. Fences is dialogue heavy, and Arrival's got a pretty interesting story. Moonlight is like everything, all of the above type of deal. So that's why it's superior to the other 4.
Yes, absolutely. So that was quick.
Yeah, very quick. All right, moving on.
Yeah. All right. So original screenplay. The nominees here are Hell or High Water, written by Taylor Sheridan. La La Land, written by Damien Chazelle. The Lobster, written by Themis Philippou and Yorgos Lanthimos. Very interesting nomination there. Manchester by the Sea, written by Kenneth Lonergan. And 20th Century Women, written by Mike Mills. In terms of likeliness, I think that we can kind of say already, very clearly, 20th Century Women and The Lobster are kind of the outliers here. And they're kind of happy to be nominated, especially The Lobster. I think that was a really fun nomination, but it's very happy to be nominated. But obviously what's going to win here is La La Land. But for me, I want Manchester by the Sea to win. And it's very, very difficult choice because you have La La Land made my top 10. It was number 5. And Hell or High Water just missed it. I think it was in the I did the Ebert thing where I had 5 movies that were tied for number 11, or a proverbial number 11. And Hell or High Water was in those. But I mean, man, it's somewhere between the two in terms of what I want to win, because on the one hand you have this very naturalistic screenplay from Kenneth Lonergan for Manchester by the Sea, where it's dealing with a lot of very universal themes of death, how somebody reacts to it, or how various people react to it, really, and told about this northeastern family, that this New England family that it's not very plot driven, but the dialogue here is kind of the key. It's very careful character work. And that's why I think it's so good. I think Lonergan writes amazing screenplays. This, Margaret, you can count on me. All great screenplays. And so it was kind of it was a thin line between that and Hell or High Water, which I think has such a precision. It reminded me of the writing for No Country for Old Men in a certain way, and that's big praise because that was written by the Coen brothers. So, very, very tight. Taut East Texas, Western, neo-Western kind of feel, some light humor in there, gritty violence, unforeseen twists, all that. But I really want Kenneth Lonergan to take one home. I just think it's a marvelous piece of work, and so yeah, Manchester by the Sea is my preference to win. I hope he does, but honestly, this is another one where it's a close call, but I think that they're going to go with La La Land, which, I would be okay with that. It's a beautiful story that the movie is telling. I don't think it's particularly exploratory in terms of or not exploratory. What's the word I'm trying to think of? It's not. It takes some risks with individual character moments, but it doesn't seem like a risky storytelling venture. It's kind of telling about the makings of and the falling out of a relationship. It's wonderful, and it's a wonderful musical. It says a lot about fame, kind of people's attempts to have fame, to gain fame, what that has to how that has to affect their relationships. Nevertheless, on a storytelling arc kind of way, it's my third favorite of this group. And even though it's my second favorite movie of the group, weird dichotomy there. But nevertheless, I want Manchester by the Sea to win, but I think that La La Land will take this one as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. La La Land will probably get it. So, my pick is actually the one that's the most original out of the 5, and that's The Lobster. When you think about it, it's like Hell or High Water, great film. It's a heist. It's a suspenseful thriller. Manchester by the Sea, wonderful drama. La La Land, wonderful musical comedy, romance, whatever the fuck. It's like a bunch of it's a melding plot. And then 20th Century Women is a great drama about women at 3 different stages in their life trying to find themselves. The Lobster screams originality. If you had to describe it, it's like it's a weird romance dark comedy. Like it's very interesting on how the movie kind of plays out. And I saw that movie in 2015. I saw it almost 2 years ago, and I still think about it. But when I think of originality and just the fact that it's one of those like kind of out there stories, but it's very unique and it's very heartfelt. It's hilarious, and it really kind of hits you in the core of your humanity at the end of the movie. I got to go with The Lobster as the most original out of the 5. But I agree with you. I think La La Land will probably win it.
Yeah. I the one I could do without winning is 20th Century Women. I'm not a huge fan of that movie, and I think that actually a large part of the problem with the movie is with the screenplay. But The Lobster is a good movie. I liked it, and I saw it almost a year ago now, May, I guess, last year. I have some problems with the third act.
Understandable.
Yeah, just in terms of how they transition into it, how they handle the, what it becomes, the plot that it takes on in that second half, or that last act, I should say. Everything up to that moment, everything up to that point is great, and I think that if it had kept on that track, it would be one of my favorites here. But I did have some problems with the third act. I like the movie. I think it's fine, but it's certainly original. I think that it has problems, though. And so, yeah. And then, of course, 20th Century Women, I'm just the weird guy on that movie this year. I'm not a fan. I'm so conflicted about that. I think it would be an interesting win if somehow Mike Mills pulls that off with 20th Century Women. It's not going to happen, but if somehow that happens, it would be great. I would forgive the Oscars for not giving it to him for Beginners a couple years ago, because I love that movie, and I would have given that one original screenplay, honestly. But yeah, this year, that's the one that I'm kind of weird about. But yeah, I mean, La La Land so has this in the bag. I can only imagine Manchester by the Sea winning, but I really don't think it'll happen. I think that all the signs are pointing to Chazelle taking it home. So
I agree.
All right, our next category is Best Supporting Actress. Sorry, I'm taking a drink of water here. Eventually my voice will just leave. Okay, so the nominees here are Viola Davis in Fences, Naomi Harris in Moonlight, Nicole Kidman in Lion, Octavia Spencer in Hidden Figures, and Michelle Williams in Manchester by the Sea. Interestingly enough, so I don't want to go deep into this whole hashtag thing that happened the last couple of years where Oscars So White became a thing. This year was very much an answer to that by using, of course, worthy performances, not just like shoving stuff in. But nevertheless, I think that in this case, it's a very interesting case of the two white nominees being sort of the outliers here. I think that Michelle Williams has lost steam in the race. Nicole Kidman never really gained any. She's the one that I call here the happy to be here nominee. There's always one of those. But yeah, she's great. I'm not trying to slag her performance in Lion. I think it's a great performance. But nevertheless, in terms of this category this year, it's kind of between the three black nominees here. Viola Davis, Octavia Spencer, Naomi Harris. I am so conflicted about who I want to win in this category amongst the three that I think are the great performances. Because on the one hand, you have Michelle Williams making a huge impact with, 3 scenes? Kind of 2 scenes, but 2.5 scenes, if you will. And then Naomi Harris is... there's an interesting line being taken about Naomi Harris, that she's playing this role as a caricature. And I just want to pause to disabuse everyone of this notion. Okay, so this character was very specifically based on, in terms of the specifics of the appearance, the attitude, and everything, on, I believe, Barry Jenkins' mother. I believe that they pulled a lot of inspiration for that character here from Barry Jenkins' mother. So it's a specific person that Naomi Harris is being here, which means that by definition, it is not a caricature. A caricature is a broad reading of a character that never actually makes a decision on what it wants to be because it's only using a template. This is a specific person, and it's a stunning performance. And I'm telling you, it's like basically for me, for my favorite, it's virtually a three-way tie. I cannot figure out if I like Michelle Williams the most, or if I like Naomi Harris the most, or Viola Davis, who gets such explosive moments in Fences. And I mean, it's just so hard to choose a favorite. So I'm just gonna kind of pick one because I would be happy with any of them winning.
That would be the idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna kind of do eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and I'm gonna say for my favorite, Naomi Harris. I think it's just crushing work, and I mean, to get that performance out of her over a weekend is incredible, and so, but the winner is going to be Viola Davis. She has this. She's basically won every award. I can't think of one that she didn't. Maybe one or two went to like Michelle Williams, but I'm pretty sure Naomi Harris only won maybe one award. So using all of that, I mean, it's going to be Viola Davis. It's the kind of it's just the kind of role they love, and she's won before, you know. So I feel like it's Viola Davis's to lose in absolution, but I would not be too sad, despite her great performance, if Naomi Harris took it. Somehow came in and took that from Viola.
I 100% agree with you. I think Viola will probably take it, and like you said, she delivers a great performance in spurts, and it's kind of like, yeah, she's there to kind of counteract Denzel and basically have these two heavy hitters in the acting world go against each other. I love it. Octavia Spencer, I could argue that I wish Janelle Monáe, that's the other one,
yeah.
Out of the three. I'd rather her be in this than Octavia, but it's just preference. Michelle Williams, great. Those three scenes are very necessary for Casey Affleck's character, and actually breaking that emotional wall that he is kind of concrete, put on himself. And Nicole Kidman, I like Lion. Nicole Kidman, there it is. It's a good performance, and all five of these women are deserving in this category. However, I really wish Naomi Harris would take this. Like what Joel said, the fact that she's shot in like 2 or 3 days, and out of the 5, she's got the best transformation. When you think about what she is in the first story, and she's like this caring mother who is just going to work and supporting her son, and she's just doing the best that she can, to the second story where she is a flat-out drug addict and she cannot control herself. Like, she's becoming abusive and really aggressive towards Chiron, to where she is ultimately pushing him away. And when you think about the third story, she's, regretful and she wants to make amends with her son. And it's just, when you think about that whole performance as a whole, I mean, fuck, I would even classify it as a lead actress performance, because she's very pivotal to the movie. And just like when we get to supporting actor, Naomi Harris as the mother is a great supporting kind of boost for the main character, but one could argue she could be a main just because of how influential she was in that movie. But as a supporting role, she absolutely kills it, and she has the best transformation out of all 5 of these actresses, and her performance is absolutely heartbreaking. Especially Joel knows what I'm talking about. In the third story, if you will, when Chiron is older and they meet up, like that's a pretty heartbreaking scene. So Naomi Harris is my preference. Viola will take it.
Quick note on Hidden Figures. I agree with you that Janelle Monáe should have been nominated simply because I love all 3 of those performances. But simply because I feel like in terms of material that we get from each of the actresses, Octavia Spencer gets the least material to work with. They all have a lot of material to work with, being the main actresses, but just in terms of like just material and impact, I feel like Janelle Monáe made a bigger one and had more. So I would have enjoyed that as well. All right, so our next category is Best Supporting Actor. The nominees here are Mahershala Ali in Moonlight, Jeff Bridges in Hell or High Water, Lucas Hedges in Manchester by the Sea, Dev Patel in Lion, and Michael Shannon in Nocturnal Animals. I'll just say it. I really have... I was talking with Chase a few weeks ago when we saw The Comedian, I think. We were at a screening, and we were kind of talking about our favorites in the acting, or in this particular category. And I just kind of went out with it with, Jeff Bridges as being my favorite performance of the year. I've given that some thought. It's so hard to choose a favorite in this category. Even Michael Shannon in Nocturnal Animals, the film I wasn't too huge on, but it's just such a funny performance. It's so dark as well. There's a lot that's going on with a character that he could easily have just kind of played it broadly, considering what the character is. And though I think that there's some deficiencies in the writing of the character, he adds a lot to it. Dev Patel is excellent. I think it's kind of a borderline lead performance. It's very interesting that they had it in this category, but he's kind of supporting himself because he splits the time with the younger actor. But it's a great performance. It's a performance of a character weighed down by his past, trying to reconnect with that. Lucas Hedges is great as well. I think that he and Patel, these are 2 really interesting breakthrough performances from younger actors that are both weighed down by family. One's trying to find his, the other one's grieving the loss of his. And it's Lucas Hedges. I'm telling you, I came out of like Chase is probably going to point out in a second. I came out of the screening raving about that because I think that it's the breakthrough performance of the year. And there's a scene in the kitchen that I feel like they're going to use as his Oscar moment or his Oscar clip. And then Mahershala Ali creates a full-blooded character with only a third of the runtime that everybody else has. He's only in the first act for a very finite reason. It's never really spelled out, but it's very heavily implied and it's devastating. He creates an interesting father figure, but man, I'm telling you, I'm just coming back to Jeff Bridges. I've seen this movie. I've seen Hell or High Water 3 times now, and I'm so struck by how he doesn't just play this as Rooster Cogburn again. You could argue that that's what he did in R.I.P.D. a couple of years ago, but I feel like he doesn't do that here. What he does is he humanizes this very he's a guy getting up in age. He's about to meet his retirement. He enjoys this chemistry with his partner that's very funny, and it's just such a complex performance, especially at the end. There's a moment between him and Chris Pine where they're just staring each other down in this very menacing kind of way, and it's just such a rich performance. There's so much history to this character that goes unspoken, and it's through the writing, but it's also through Jeff Bridges' performance. You can kind of guess that there's so much here that has led to this moment, that has fostered this investigative sense in his mind, that he's a very, very, very smart guy. He knows exactly kind of what's going on whenever a clue comes up, and it's just a really interesting performance. So it's hard. It's another category where it's hard to choose a favorite, but by a hair, I think Jeff Bridges is my favorite. However, Mahershala Ali is going to win this. He's won enough of the precursors to kind of guess that it, you know, they're rallying behind him. And anyway, it's a really, really, really good performance that that I feel like they're about to honor that this new talent, this relatively new talent that's kind of just broken through. I mean, he's going to get roles from this, and more power to him. So, and he's kind of already gotten one. You know, Luke Cage. I haven't watched it yet, but I know that he's a big part of that show. And anyway, so that's my thought.
Two things. Also, he is in the awesome House of Cards, Mahershala
Yes.
Ali,
And in Hidden Figures.
and Hidden Figures.
Yeah, good role in that.
Second thing, I can attest to that because we leave Manchester by the Sea. I'm like, man, that was such a great movie. The first thing out of Joel's mouth wasn't even like, man, Casey Affleck was pretty good. Oh man, that movie was great. He was like, man, that Lucas Hedges, he was something. He's gonna blow up. And I was like, what the fuck? So I mean, Joel called it from like 5 months ago, and now this kid is like nominated. So that's kind of cool. I like Lucas Hedges in the movie. I like Jeff Bridges in the movie. Michael Shannon, Nocturnal Animals. It's my second favorite of the year. Obviously, I like that performance. You and Owl Lou. And then Dev Patel. Yeah, one could argue that he's the lead because the little kid that plays him, he's in the first 30, 40 minutes of the movie, and then Dev Patel is in the rest. And
Oh
that
no,
is actually
it's split down the middle. The kid is in there for 55 minutes, and then I think it's like exactly an hour that Dev Patel's in there. So it's
okay, so he's in there for a little longer than the kid. So yeah, one could still argue that he's the lead. However, this and the adapted screenplay category are the only two I agree with in terms of who they're going to pick. Mahershala Ali will win this. He is my personal favorite. He is very pivotal to the story, and what he brought to the screen, he didn't bring this stereotypical drug dealer. He brought a person who was doing something to make ends meet, and he was an authentic human. That's what his character was, and he taught Chiron just things about life because he did not have a father figure. He basically told him that to be himself no matter how many times life gets you down, because in the movie Chiron is he is gay. So Mahershala, his character is like, listen, you need to just be who you are, and you need to stand up for yourself and all this. Just basic life lessons that I found really kind of touching, and the fact that he just kind of comes and goes essentially is very realistic. Given what Fervent Roze was talking about when he was at the screening that Joel and I were at. So, yeah, this is one of the few categories where I go, you know what, Academy, I agree with you. He is my pick. Give it to him. This guy's been working for many, many years, so please let Mr. Ali take this home.
Indeed, it's a great performance. All right, so our next category is Best Actress, and I must begin with a disclaimer. Usually, and this is just a personal rule, if I have seen half or more of any given poll, or if I'm able to take part in a poll, it means that I have seen or whatever. I've been able to. I have enough authority to vote in that poll if half of it I've seen or read or heard or whatever. This just barely makes it because I have not seen two of the nominees in Best Actress. But the nominees are Isabelle Huppert in Elle, Ruth Negga in Loving, Natalie Portman in Jackie, Emma Stone in La La Land, and Meryl Streep in Florence Foster Jenkins. I have not seen Florence Foster Jenkins, and I have not seen Loving. There were two that I just didn't get to, and then they nominated them, and I'm like, dadgummit, and neither of them are playing in theaters anymore, at least not to my knowledge. So I'll see them at some point. But from the three that I've seen, I will pick a favorite, and that is Natalie Portman and Jackie. There's a lot of people who have been calling this just a mimicry of Jacqueline Kennedy. It is not. It is absolutely. It's like an embodiment. There's so much more going on here than mimicry. So much more. It's a woman grieving. She's able to do that. It's a very intelligent woman who's been underestimated by her beauty, or due to her beauty, I should say. She was a very intelligent woman. We kind of collectively remember her for being the beautiful wife of a president, but there's just so much there that she fought for. She was a great first lady. The movie is exploring, what her place is now that her husband's died, and it's just such a complex performance. It's one of the best of the year 5. It's in my top 5 of the year performances across genders and categories, and so that's my pick. And I feel like there's a possibility that it could rally and she could take it, but I think that the winner here is going to be La La Land again, and that is Emma Stone. And she's great. It's a great performance. It's an emotionally naked one when it needs to be. It's very a lot of personality to it. I mean, it's a really good performance. And I love this Isabelle Huppert in Elle. I think that there's a lot going on there too. But my favorite is Natalie Portman. It's such a stunning piece of work from her, and but yeah, I think Emma Stone's got this. I think that she's basically won everything else. Pretty sure all of the precursors have gone to her, so it's pretty much in Emma Stone's bag right now.
Well, once again, I 100% agree with you. You know what's really interesting is I thought you were going to go Huppert. I thought you were going to be pick her as the favorite because I know that you and 90% of the populace just love to give Elle a hand job, and I'm sitting over here going, I don't know what the fuck you guys saw, but anyways, no, I agree that her performance was really good. If you can go back and watch my review. I hated everything else about it, but I thought she was committed into her role, so that's not the issue. So her nomination is warranted. Emma Stone is going to win this. And I thought the performance was good, and you're right, when she really needs to get kind of emotionally invested into the situation at hand with her and Ryan Gosling, she really delivers it. She can be happy in one scene and then completely devastated in the next scene. She could be concerned in the next scene, frustrated, angry, happy, all that stuff. Meryl Streep did not see her, and Ruth Negga did not see Loving. But I'm totally with Joel. I cannot fucking believe that Emma Stone will win this. Yeah, she's great in the movie. But what Natalie Portman did in Jackie, I was completely blown away by her performance. I convinced myself after the movie, I was like, she's going to win her second one in a row. I was fully convinced that now that Emma Stone's won everything, she'll probably fucking win it now. What Natalie Portman did is transformative. It was immersive. She was Jacqueline Kennedy, down to the accent, to the way she walked, to the way she portrayed each scene, because there are some scenes where she's happy with John, and then there are some scenes where she is devastated because of the assassination. There's other scenes where she's concerned and very confused as to how she tells her kids that her fucking their father passed away. And then there's some scenes that are extremely heartbreaking to watch, and she completely delivers the vulnerability of what a human is when they lose someone that they love. Because people tend to forget this was an iconic lady of the United States, right? And so people just looked up to her and oh, she's this top model citizen, whatnot. And people tend to forget that she lost her husband. She watched that happen right in front of her, and it shook her to her core, and it really showed what a human is like and what she is like as a person versus like what people perceive her to be. And there was just something about that performance that I was so devastated by the entire movie that I was like, dude, she's got this in the bag, but I guess Emma Stone's got it, so it would be a nice upset, but I think Joel and I know that Emma Stone will probably get this, but at least him and I agree on Natalie Portman.
Yeah, I mean, Jackie is not even more, just as much a fascinating study of grief. It's a study of PTSD, because clearly that's what she has in these 3 days between the assassination and the funeral procession. And it's just an examination of all of that. I love that movie. All right, so our next to last category is Best Actor. The nominations here are for Casey Affleck in Manchester by the Sea, Andrew Garfield in Hacksaw Ridge, Ryan Gosling in La La Land, Viggo Mortensen in Captain Fantastic, Denzel Washington in Fences. I think that so one of the things that Chase and I talked about, I think it was there, it may have been through text, I can't remember, but was the fact that Denzel Washington's SAG win pretty much writes his name on the Oscar. And guess what? I have come around on that. I agree. I think that Denzel is going to win this. And you know what? It's a great performance. It's this character where he's set up to be a man with morals, with a solid ethical foothold. And then, certain events kind of strip that away from him. And he's able to keep this commanding presence while also being incredibly human. You can see that there's a frailty to him that he wants to hide. In that way, it was a perfect role for James Earl Jones, who was the original actor to fill that on stage, of August Wilson's original run of the play. And Denzel's kind of become the modern answer to James Earl Jones, I think. They're very similar actors in posture. And I feel like Washington was drawn to this role because he recognizes that he has many of the same strengths as Jones does, and it's a great performance. But there are two people here who I feel kind of could sneak in there and take it from him. This is the toughest, maybe other than Viggo Mortensen. He's kind of the happy to be here nominee. Of the group, and I think that Andrew Garfield is hurt by possibly being seen as nominated for the wrong movie in a way, but I think that there's a trifecta here at the top, and Casey Affleck and Ryan Gosling are kind of right on the outside here. Affleck's kind of been hurt by the publicity angle, with a lot of his legal troubles. We're not going to get into that, but he also gives a great performance here. It's a very quiet performance. A lot of it has to be delivered through silence, through facial expressions, especially the initial scene where he learns that he might have to be Lucas Hedges' guardian, cuts back and forth between some pretty harsh truths in the past and present, and he's able to nail that performance. But for me, again, my favorite performance in this category, above even the other ones, all of which are pretty, emotionally kind of bereft of, not emotionally bereft, but bereft of happiness a lot in a lot of cases, defined by a lot of tragedy. My favorite performance is Ryan Gosling. I just feel like this guy needs to win it. I think it's his best performance from what I've seen. I just love it. It's such a. I mean, he's not a singer. He's kind of being forced to sing, and he gives it his all. And then he's having to play all of these various emotions, and I think it's the best performance in the film. A lot of people say that Emma Stone gives the best performance in the film. and she's great, but I think that if it's a two-hander, he's sort of the stronger hand here, and so it's just my favorite performance in this category. I just loved watching him, in this movie, and the musical performances and just the acting performance is just incredibly impressive. So by a hair, I think it's another one by a hair. I think Ryan Gosling deserves to win this, but I think that Denzel Washington will win this.
You know what? We definitely don't agree, but I do agree on Denzel Washington. Casey Affleck had the front-running win for the longest time, but then Denzel wins the SAG Award. Yeah, he's pretty much got this in the bag. Now, if he wins it, I'm not going to be upset. It was a good performance. I'm on the opposite end of Joel, though. Ryan Gosling, good performance. Andrew Garfield, wonderful. I absolutely loved him in that movie. And Viggo Mortensen, that was a good performance. But there was something about the vulnerability in that one scene that Joel knows what I'm talking about, or two scenes in Manchester by the Sea, to where I was just blown away. When you think about what he had to do, like Joel said, with the facial expressions and just the way he moved and carried himself, he is emotionally shut off. And then there's two scenes in the movie, and you understand way more about his character, and you understand what he's going through, and you empathize a little bit, even more than what you already have done so far, and you just realize that this is an explosive performance. Because he is, like I said, he's kind of very subtle the whole way through, being, this father figure to his nephew. And then these two scenes unravel so much about his history and just unravel so much about how good Casey Affleck is. That's why I'm going to give my preference to Casey Affleck in Manchester by the Sea. But I think all five of these guys are warranted. I have no issues with any one of them. But if Denzel wins, not going to be a problem. He probably will win. But my preference is Casey Affleck.
Yeah, I liked all the performances a lot. The one, it's interesting because you and I watched Captain Fantastic together. It's interesting because over the last couple of months since we watched that, I've thought less and less of the movie. I think that there's a lot of really precious, kind of very forced drama in that movie. A lot of the writing seems to be on the nose, but the thing that kind of anchors it are the performances, especially Viggo Mortensen. It's a really good performance from him.
Well, and also the kids are really good too. It's a good good dysfunctional kind of ensemble family type of movie. And you're right though. Like we saw a couple months ago. I've kind of forgotten about most of the movie. The only thing I do remember, and it's just because it was very in your face, was his dick. So I mean, that's the only thing I remember in terms of scenes. Like I remember the beginning and I remember the end, and I don't remember much of like the middle and what goes on. But yeah, it's just one of those kind of movies that you just kind of forget about, unfortunately. And but it is nice to see him in there because he was nominated for Eastern Promises, which is a pretty great Cronenberg film. So I mean, he's a great actor all around, and I'm glad that he doesn't act that much, but when he picks his roles, like obviously they mean something to him. So I think this was a good role for him.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. We're in our last category here. Big one. Best documentary short subject. I'm just kidding. It's Best Picture. Okay. So this is going to be pretty short. I feel like we don't really need to go into it a whole lot. So the nominees this year are Arrival, Hacksaw Ridge, Fences, Hell or High Water, Hidden Figures, Lion, La La Land, Manchester by the Sea, and Moonlight. I sort of said those out of alphabetical order, but anyway, so I feel like it's really kind of come down to three movies at the top for me. There are six here that I feel don't really have much of a chance to win. Might be surprised by the six that I think are on the bottom. are below the top three. Lion, Manchester, Arrival, Hell or High Water, Hacksaw Ridge, Fences. I feel like all of those are, any one of them could maybe come in and kind of steal some thunder, but I doubt it. I think that the ones at the top are Hidden Figures, Moonlight, and La La Land. But I think La La Land's going to win. It has won every other thing this this season. It has the most critical. It seems to have the most critical backing to it, even though Moonlight has like a 99%. I know that La La Land has a 95, or I'm not sure, but it seems like the people in the Academy who love La La Land love it more than Moonlight. And it just really seems it's going to be close. And, it could split between the two, picture and director. It could be a situation where the directors go for Chazelle and the Academy at large goes for Moonlight, or in the opposite direction, with Jenkins and La La Land. But it's always kind of a hard thing to predict something like that. It happens, but kind of hard to predict that. I feel like La La Land is going to take picture and director. I think it's going to take the top two. However, far and away, the best film of last year, and probably of the last 5 years, was Moonlight. So that's absolutely my choice in terms of preference, both in picture and in director. And it's just such a truthful movie. It feels like this. It's almost like this quiet landmark. It doesn't. It's not a big movie. It's big in emotion, but it's not a big movie.
I mean, if you think about it, it's a pretty epically told story, going between three different ages for this character. So it is told very epically in the sense, but you're right, it's more of a quieter, smaller movie.
It's a small
intimate.
Scale. There's a large scope of emotion and time frame, but in terms of the scale, it takes place in kind of this single neighborhood for most of the movie, and so it's a small. It just feels like a very quiet landmark. It's going to be one of those things. I feel like this, whatever wins Best Picture, this is going to be the movie that 2016 is attributed to, much in the same way that Mad Max is now attributed to 2015. Everybody thinks of that movie when they think of 2015 in film, collectively speaking, and Boyhood for 2014, all that. So I just feel like this is going to be that movie this year, where when people think, what was the best movie of 2016, whatever wins Best Picture, people are just going to say Moonlight. I just feel like that, unless they're in the minority on it, and for some reason are crazy people who don't like it, and if they don't like it, then they're just being contrarian, because I just can't imagine not liking it. But I mean, it's just a perfect movie, and I can't imagine ever picking anything else. Nothing that I see from 2016 is likely to overtake this one for me. There are a lot of great movies, but it was the landmark of the year. And in terms of empathetic storytelling, in terms of just filmmaking, I thought that it had a lot of the best of a lot of technical categories this year. And film editing, I thought, was great. Cinematography in particular. The score was beautiful. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, powerful movie, and going to be remembered for decades. So that's my preference. But La La Land, I could see this winning, 9 or 10, and this is going to be one of them. So, yeah.
I agree with you. Listen, I've been on the Moonlight train ever since Joel and I saw it, and we saw it in October, by the way. Yeah. I remember when we watched it, we turned to each other, and I was like, dude, that was the best. We just saw the best picture of the year. Like, nothing else is going to top that. Like, that was it was a unique experience, and I agree with Joel. I think this is going to be remembered, and it's gonna be a classic. It is going to be a masterpiece of cinema to really kind of time capsule everything about 2016. Politics, art, just the environment and humanity. That is the most authentic, genuine one of the entire group. And I'm not saying the rest of the movies are terrible, because that's not what I'm saying. I think they're all worthy of Best Picture. But he is right. It is between La La Land, Moonlight, and Hidden Figures has a dark horse chance.
Yeah, I mean, really, guys, people listening, don't be surprised if somehow that movie comes in and steals it, even if it's not nominated for Best Director.
Yeah.
That movie is hitting... it's very relevant, first of all. It's a very relevant movie, and I love it. It made my top 10 last year. And it's a very relevant movie. It hits a lot of it's a light entertainment and a serious examination of progress and its roadblocks. It's a great piece of work. Don't be surprised if it just slips in, and some people just are like, man, I love that. Just kind of mark it off on their ballots. I wouldn't be surprised if for somehow beating La La Land and Moonlight is Hidden Figures. It just feels like those three are at the top. Hidden Figures, of the three, least likely, simply because it's not nominated for Best Director. And that typically means, at least to me, typically, with the few exceptions across the history of the Academy, that there isn't quite the rallying behind it of something like La La Land and Moonlight. Simply because
I have something to pitch to you. Now, this is pretty easy for you and I. Moonlight is obviously our favorite, and La La Land will probably win. Let's go back to 2014. What if it was Moonlight versus, I think, the better Chazelle film, Whiplash? That would be one of the hardest duos to ever pick from, because I love both of those equally. I don't know which way I would swing, to be honest with you.
It would be hard, because to sort of comment really quickly on the year in general. 2016 was a good year. It was a good year for movies. It felt like there were the 3 years previous were so strong that I'm tempted to say that, collectively speaking, 2016 wasn't as strong as 2015 or 2014 or 2013. I think that those were stronger years. But for me, I mean, I kind of just said it. It's for me the best movie, probably since A Separation, probably since A Separation, which came out in late 2011. That's where I think the last time I felt something as strongly as Moonlight was, and A Separation is my number one of the decade so far. But if it were to come between Moonlight and Whiplash, I would go with Moonlight still, but it would be closer, I think. In terms of, I wouldn't mind Whiplash winning or something. I love La La Land as well. Whiplash was my number 3 in 2014. So La La Land's number 5. I mean, what do these numbers mean? But nevertheless, Whiplash was closer to the top of a better year than La La Land was last year, if that makes sense. And so, it would be a thinner margin, I think, of quality.
I totally agree. Just cap off my statements and let Joel wrap it up. Moonlight, Moonlight, Moonlight. That's all I gotta say. If you still haven't seen it, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Give it a shot. I think you'll love it. Listen, I was just as skeptical as you. When I saw Birth of a Nation and that trailer for Moonlight played in front of it, it was like all these critic quotes were flying at me like fucking dodgeballs in middle school, and it was just like, masterpiece, one of the best pieces of cinema. You're like, oh, okay, let's calm that down. Sometimes I get a little overhyped on stuff, I will fully admit, but with Moonlight, I was just like, it doesn't look like it's gonna be that good. It looks good. No, I was wrong. All those critic quotes were deserving. I think it will be remembered as the 2016 movie. It will be remembered 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. It is a landmark in cinema. And all those people that say it's important, it's great because it's important. If you just say that and you don't actually explain yourself on why it's actually a perfect film, or just something about the film quality, then you are a part of the problem. I hate people that will talk about Moonlight or Fences or Hidden Figures because they deal with racial issues and be like, oh, they're in there because they're important. No, because they're good fucking movies. So sorry, Joel, I had to say that. I'm tired of people fucking saying that.
Yeah. When there's clearly not a lot of effort behind something like that, it's clearly in there because of but these are not.
I mean, I won't stunt and say it's not important, because it is very important in terms of breaking through, having a poor black gay individual as its main character. That is breaking grounds, and that is why it is important. But it's great because it's a great romance film, and it's done so beautifully and intimately.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned a little bit earlier about the how Moonlight kind of captures the year, even in terms of politics, because historians are going to be dissecting 2016 until 3016, because this was quite the year for society in general. And it's going to be interesting because film historians are going to look at this year with, first of all, bafflement. And second of all, they're going to see that the critical establishment kind of came around this movie. That's a very empathetic story told about a young black gay man trying to escape from poverty, drugs, all of that, in a starkly atypical fashion for something like this. It's usually an on-the-nose message picture that preaches to you. This doesn't, and it's going to be very interesting. For I wish I could put myself in the shoes of future film historians. And maybe if incarnation is true or reincarnation is true, I will be. But no. But nevertheless, I would want to put myself in the shoes of those future film historians, looking back at 2016, because I'm telling you, even 1,000 years from now, and they're looking back, if movies still exist, if they're looking back and they're looking at these movies that define the year, it's gotta be Moonlight. I just can't think of anything else that so defined the year. Our response to a lot of the stuff that happened. I mean, it's a masterpiece, and Hidden Figures as well, especially given we have a war going on right now between truth and what's not truth. And it's just so heartening to see a movie like Hidden Figures tell a story that isn't widely known because it wasn't focused on as part of the defining moment of that part of history. But it totally is, and in this age of alternative facts being things that are apparently real, it's just incredibly heartening to see a movie do this well with critics. And so yeah, I mean, those two movies, I kind of feel like those two movies are the defining ones of 2016. So, and that's why, again, I think Hidden Figures, wouldn't be surprised if it came from behind and took the Oscar. It's definitely the dark horse here.
And I think that is a great way to end this.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good year. I'm looking forward to both the Oscars, and then I'll probably go back through and listen to yours and Terrence's live viewing the next day, probably.
Joel, that's 3 hours of recording.
Oh, I usually go back through the Oscars anyway. So
really,
I would probably just I just go through and watch certain ones. So even if I don't listen to the whole podcast that you do, then I'll probably just the shocking wins or some of the or whatever,
yeah,
acting wins or whatever. I'll probably go back through and kind of skip around a little bit. But anyway, it was a good year. I'm looking forward to it, and everybody, hope you all enjoy the telecast. Sunday night, 7:30, ABC, hosted by Jimmy Kimmel, right?
Yes.
Or is it
Jimmy Kimmel.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to him. By the way, I think he's really funny. I like him a lot, so I'm looking forward to that hosting job. And yeah.
Yeah. So Oscars
Thanks for having me on. By the way, this was fun. We got to do this every year.
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely a must. Is Joel and I will do these kind of Oscar specials, and then
because if we're not going to do them on the show, we're going to do them to each other.
Correct.
Well,
yeah, because just to let you guys know, Joel and I argue all the fucking time about movies, so this actually carries on beyond the internet. So, yeah, no, it was a lot of fun like usual. But yeah. Joel will actually be on pretty soon if you miss his sultry, sexy voice, and he will be on the Logan podcast coming up in 2 weeks. But for right now, where can the people find you online?
Well, actually, it's interesting because I usually give two answers, but I'm gonna add on a third because I've taken a larger position at this website, and it's called Podcasting Them Softly. I'm going to be taking on a larger contributorship. I'm going to be doing a big series ongoing called 7-Sentence Reviews. They're a lot easier to write, with my current two movies a week kind of reviewing schedule. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So you can find me over there. It's also a website that obviously features podcasts. That it's the couple guys leading it over there, talk to people in the industry. So I'm going to pimp their website. And then my own website, Joel on Film, it's up and running now. For a while there, and at the end of the last year, I had a lot of just kind of went on a hiatus that was not intended. But I'm up and running, full speed ahead on reviews. And of course, at Twitter, you can find me at Copling, that's COPLING _ Joel, JOEL. So that's my internet presence. And of course, letterboxd.com/jcopling if you are on that website.
Yeah, and all of his links will be in the description below. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it's at RealChaseLee. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio. You guys know the fucking drill. Spread it around. Let people know that these things exist and they're somewhat decent to listen to. So, yeah, this is an extra episode, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. The following schedule for Sunday is still the same. I will have the main podcast over Get Out, and then of course the live coverage of the Oscars. I will make sure I bring a shit ton of tea and water so my voice does not go dry. So yeah, it's gonna be a busy weekend, but I'm excited. It is basically every movie lover's dream is the Oscars. So thank you guys.
I should be live tweeting it myself too. I'll have some friends over, but I'm gonna try to live tweet what I can. So
yeah, follow Mr. Joel on Twitter so you can get his reactions and whatnot, and yeah, you'll get to see my reactions live with my scraggly voice. So yeah, we'll see you guys on Sunday for the normal episode and the Oscar live coverage. Peace out, everyone. And hey, listen, if you are not a movie fan, you accidentally stumbled across this what we just did, and you are not a movie fan, like I said, hopefully we convinced you to be one. I'm Chase Lee. That is Joel over there. He will be on the Logan podcast in a couple weeks. Peace out, everyone. Bye-bye. Play that music, son.